Hey, and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, we're going to talk about buying a brand new condo or townhome versus buying a near new condo or townhome. What are the pros and cons? This will also pertain to detached homes as well. We're going to talk about some warranty issues that are making the rounds in the news right now between developers and strata corporations. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video because something is brewing with the federal government when it comes to rental housing, and it's going to incentivize builders to shift their focus to build purpose-built rentals. Real quick before we get started, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. And I also make content designed to help you make your own moves in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds interesting to you and you wanted to talk with me one-on-one about your own real estate situation, you can book me in the Calendly link below and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, so buying a brand new property versus buying something that's near new that has some years of life to it. The reason I wanted to talk about that this week is there's some news out there between a developer and a strata corporation in downtown Vancouver of significant warranty defects early on in the process. So a couple years into this building, that is now headed towards litigation. In order to really understand the difference between new and something that's near new, we need to talk about the warranty that's included here in Canada when you're buying a new property. So when you buy a brand new property, it comes with what we call a 2, 5, 10 warranty. And it basically stands for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. You get a 2-year warranty on materials and labor. You get a 5-year warranty on building envelope, and then you get a 10-year warranty on anything structurally related. So when people are buying new condos, brand new condos, they're paying GST on those properties, but the value that they're being given is they get something brand new, but they're essentially buying that warranty as well. You may have heard in the news over the last few years, there's been issues with newer buildings having significant building issues. Buildings downtown Vancouver having issues with the windows shattering. Newer buildings, other buildings having flooding issues that are again brand new, or buildings that are only 3 to 4 years old. In the news most recently, there is a building in downtown Vancouver called the Pacific. And essentially the Strata Corporation has filed litigation against not just the developer, but the builder as well, the subcontractors, the city of Vancouver, for about 80 or so deficiencies that aren't getting rectified. So before we kind of go down this path, I want to just quickly outline what happens with these warranty issues when you're in a newer building. So these 80 issues that they're talking about, it can stem from very minor things like, strata unit owners might report chipping on paint and things that may be cosmetic versus things that are also more significant. So what happens is a strata corporation, as a strata unit owner, you would submit that into strata to the strata council. If you notice there's some deficiencies, then they would pass that along to a warranty provider. Typically National Home Warranty or Aviva in Canada will provide that warranty. And what happens is they submit the claims through the portal, and that warranty provider, someone will be sitting behind a desk basically and will be looking at all of the different claims that come in, and they will decide whether these claims fall under warranty or they do not, right? So, people are submitting everything in, and a lot of times the insurance company or the warranty provider says that a claim doesn't quite meet the warranty criteria. If you think about it, their job, insurance companies, warranty companies, I don't care which company it is, it's almost as if their job is to shoo away as many claims as possible, right? They're not, that rep is not incentivized for having a large list of claims. In fact, they're probably rewarded for having the least amount of claims make it through the process. So as I talked on the top, you get 2 years to start on the materials and the labor, and then into the 5 years, there's a time limit where you need that developer to take care of these deficiencies before that time has come and gone, and you're SOL if it's not rectified. So oftentimes what will happen is strata corporations will submit the deficiencies There may be some back and forth pushback with the warranty provider and the Strata Corporation. Sometimes what happens, and this doesn't make the news, but it does happen out there, is that Strata Corporation now will send a letter to the builder, to the developer, to the subcontractors, to the roofing company. They'll list everyone and they'll say, look, we're going to take you to litigation if you don't get this done. Because again, there's a statute of limitations, a certain amount of time that can be rectified. And sometimes you have to hold the developers feet to the fire, and it's not an indication always of the developer. When you hear issues at buildings, it's not always the developer. As I mentioned, there's a lot of subcontractors that are in play. Now obviously the developer is, you could say, the parent company, if you will. They're hiring the builder, and the subcontractors are all under them, so they are accountable. But the developer, they typically have the land, they have the financing, the relationship with the bank. And that's why you see a defendant list of, I think there's 40 or so in this claim as defendants, including the city of Vancouver. So it's not always a reflection of this developer. There are always deficiencies with new buildings. That's something that's very important to keep in mind. A building that does not have deficiencies does not exist. It's about sifting through like what is an actual deficiency, what isn't, and not being afraid to hold the developer and the builder's feet to the fire if the resolution is not coming. A lot of times what will happen is you'll send that letter saying, look, we will proceed to litigation, and what will happen is the builder, the developer, the warranty company, they'll pull up their socks and they'll say, look, let's just fix this, let's just figure it out. They come together, they figure it out. So back to the topic of this video, buying a new condo, you're buying that warranty, and there's value in that. Like I said, oftentimes there can be a little bit of pushback when you're submitting the claims, but generally, for the most part, it does get figured out. Now, what happens with this 2-5-10 warranty, the thing that I love about it is, at the 5-year mark where you're getting to the building envelope section of the warranty, or the expiry, Strata Corporation will bring in a consulting firm essentially to come in and assess the building envelope, and they'll send a note out to all the owners saying, submit any issues, any claims that you might have in advance. The consultants will review that. They'll come out and review the building, and they'll come up with a report. It's called a 5-year warranty review, and they're going to send that through to the developer and the warranty company to take care of it. And the same thing is going to happen at the 10-year mark. And again, you have to do that before that warranty expires or your SOL. So at the 10-year mark, you'll have a 10-year warranty review. So this is great. As a real estate agent, me working with buyers, I love to have that sort of data because the more data you have to make an informed decision when it comes to a strata building, the better. So for me, when is the best time to buy into a building? When is the best age to buy into a building? I love a building that's at the 11-year mark, 11 to 14 years. If you can get a building at that age, you will have a 5-year warranty review report to look at. You will have a 10-year warranty review report to look at. Often you'll have a depreciation report to look at. And what that allows you to do when you have a 5-year report, a 10-year report, you can see how the developer has tackled the warranty issues, how the warranty company has handled the warranty issues. Have things been rectified as they should have? So you have all of this data to work with. When you're buying a building in pre-sale, and I've done videos on pre-sale and pre-sale risk, they make a lot of sense for a lot of people. I'll link to that video here. They make a lot of sense for a lot of people, but there are other types of risks with pre-sale properties. You mitigate risks the more you know and the more information you have access to when you have a building that has existed for some time. There's also other benefits to buying in that, again, that 11-year space. So you have all that data to work with, but also from a cost perspective in terms of what you may have to pay out for capital expenditures, not much should need to be paid out between the 11-year mark. Not until you get to about 25 years, you start looking at the roof, you start looking at elevator maintenance, sometimes repiping or update to the piping. So there's not a lot of large capital, big ticket expenditures that happen after that 10-year warranty period for a span of another 10 to 15 years. So to talk about a stable condo unit that is very unlikely to cost you a massive special levy, oftentimes you can get indication of whether a building is heading in that direction just based on the reports you get when you're buying a condo. When you're buying the condo, you get 2 years worth of the annual minutes, the special minutes, the monthly minutes, but you also get those reports I talked about. So you can really get an understanding of whether this building is going to need capital expenditures early or not. So when I'm working with my buyers, if we are lucky enough, we're in an environment inventory-wise where we can target specific types of properties, that's what we're looking at. We're paying a little bit less for that property versus a brand new property as well. So that's always a plus. Strata fees have typically leveled out. I mean, they do go up pretty much every year, but in the first few years of a building's existence is when they tend to increase the most. So you tend to have a more steady strata fee, more consistency with that. And of course, when you're buying near new versus buying brand new, that GST component that I talked about, when you're buying brand new, you're paying GST on it. When you're buying something that's, near new, and you'll have to double check this in different scenarios because sometimes GST does get charged twice. So you do have to double check that specifically, but for the most part, you're not going to have to pay GST on something that's near new, and 99% of the time you won't be spending it on something that's an 11-year-old building, for instance. Now, on the GST note, I'm going to swing it over to what I was mentioning off the top of the video with the federal government, doing something when it comes to purpose-built housing purpose-built rentals to try and incentivize developers. In last week's video, I did a video talking about how, the federal government really has thrown their hands up in the air in terms of how do they get more housing supply, and realizing that their big focus needs to be on rental housing. They can't worry so much about incentivizing developers to build market housing that gets put on the market for sale, which investors may purchase, etc., may not actually assist people with housing affordability. They can't really move the needle in that sense. So I mentioned in last week's video, they're going to heavily focus on purpose-built rental. They came out and they are offering essentially loans to developers up to $500 million to provide 1,100 rental units in BC. So that's specifically for our province. That was kind of the first step. But the big thing that is brewing, and this is massive, is the federal government is looking at removing the developer's need or requirement to pay GST when they're building a purpose-built rental project. So just to outline how it works. So if a developer is building a purpose-built rental tower, meaning that it's all rental units, they're going to hold on to it themselves, they're going to rent out that project. What happens on paper when that building is complete is essentially the building gets sold, the units get sold, and then it gets sold back to the developer. And it's just a paper process. But when that paper process happens, it triggers GST payment on all of the units in the building. So to give you an idea of dollar amount, what this means for purpose-built rental, if we take an average amount of units in a tall tower, say 400 units, we look at the benchmark price of condos in today's market in Metro Vancouver, around $770,000. So when you do the math on the GST, you're looking at over $15 million in GST a developer has to pay if they choose to go the purpose-built rental route versus building something for resale or pre-sale. And from a financial risk perspective, the other thing you have to think about as well is when developers are deciding between purpose-built rental or building something for sale, yes, often they get more density, they can build more on the rental side, but think of the pre-sale model. When they're selling pre-sale, for the most part, these tall towers are requesting 25% deposits from the buyers paid in the first year. So they're getting all that funding. It's taking a lot of risk out of the scenario. They're getting all of that funding. Oftentimes they use that funding towards the project. So they get 25% upfront within that first year. So they are a lot more secure financially. When it comes to a purpose-built rental, when does the developer make their money? They make it over the long term. They're not getting that big chunk of change for a strata unit, right? They start getting rent, 6 years into the process. After they've put up a tower, they've gone through the whole process, and now they just start having rent kind of trickle in. So the longer that they're not generating income on a property. Their costs are essentially the same. They're carrying a lot more risk. Money is expensive, so their costs are even higher. So the federal government now, through pressure from provincial governments, from Benjamin Tal, for instance, he's the economist at CIBC. He's put some more pressure on, saying this is something that needs to happen. In fact, the Liberal government did look at doing this. Apparently, they were going to do this in 2015. They were going to remove that GST component, and in hopes that this was going to push more developers to build purpose-built rental. Think back. Imagine they had done that in 2015. What might have occurred? Look, it's not going to do anything in terms of processing times, in terms of build times, in terms of construction costs, but I can tell you that is significant enough to move some developers to focus into the rental market. I won't get into the whole rent control scenario here, because that's another factor that holds developers back from putting a purpose-built rental tower up, at least specifically here in BC. I think if they do remove this GST component, a lot of developers, they're going to love it in the GTA, in the Toronto area, where there is no rent control on these newer buildings. So it's going to allow them to capture market rents after that first year, after that first tenancy agreement. Should market rents increase, they can capture it over there where they can't fully capture it over here in BC. We'll be at the 2 or the 2.5%. In fact, we should find out what next year's raise will be, allowable raise. We should find that out in the next few weeks. So of course I'll do a video on that. But so developers are really going to lick their chops, I think, for building rentals, especially in the GTA, Alberta as well. BC, in my opinion, they are going to have to look at that rent control model and whether they do something like they have in Ontario, where the newer buildings, there is no rent control. Probably doesn't happen. Should it happen? Yes. But again, federal government is looking at doing this. They said they were going to do it in the past. So maybe this time around, as we head towards an election in the next couple of years, maybe now is the time that it actually happens. But this is very good news if you're concerned about rental housing in our communities, in our cities. This will incentivize developers to shift in that direction. So there you have it, guys. I hope you learned something in this video. Buying brand new condos and townhomes versus buying something that's near new. When is the best age to buy a building? And then also, of course, what the federal government plans to do to get more rental housing across the country. If you did enjoy this video, hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can learn from it as well. And if you enjoy weekly real estate content like this, I drop videos every Saturday morning. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next one. And again, if you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley, you're considering making a move, or you just have your own real estate questions that you need addressed one-on-one with me, book me for a free call in the Calendly link below, or you can also just send me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever is easiest for you. Be happy to chat with you one-on-one. But I want to thank you for watching this week's video, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video.